Boom! What's going on, everyone? I'm Logan, the 64th Gear Jammer Skeele, opening up Advantage Diecast, Southside Warehouse doors on another episode of Toy Talk. I've got some great models, a supposedly true backstory, and a question for you, so stay tuned to the end. I suppose that everyone who has owned or driven a car has a tale to tell about the car. Usually it's about a bad or a good driving experience. I have a sinister tale about a car named Christine. Christine is, yes, I said Christine is, because Christine may still exist today. Christine is a 1958 red Plymouth Fury. She came down the assembly line amid a string of yellow 1958 Plymouth Furies. She was different in color, but other than that, she was the same as the other yellow Furies that came down the line before and after her. No one paid any attention to Christine's color and assembled her the same way as the other cars. But Christine turned out to be pure evil. You might say possessed by the supernatural. Christine, you see, was approved by the devil himself. Stephen King, he wrote the story about Christine. John Carpenter brought her to life on the silver screen. Christine is classed as a supernatural horror film. As I said, Christine started life on the assembly line in Detroit in fall 1957. Christine started her evil life even before she left that assembly line. Christine had a vindictive, jealous, evil personality. It's unclear why she claimed her first victim. An inspector was looking under the car. He was only doing his job to make sure Christine was complete. He had done this job before countless times, and nothing out of the ordinary had ever happened. This time, however, he put his hand on the upper front frame with the hood open, just like he always did. And he was looking under the car when suddenly Christine closed the hood, crushing his hand. Though this could have just been an accident. Another inspector opened the driver's door, got into Christine, and closed the door. He turned on the radio, and then he carelessly flicked his hot cigar ash onto the seat. At quitting time, a line supervisor noticed the headlights on and the radio blaring in the red Fury. He went to turn them off, opened the door, and the inspector fell out dead. That's a little harder to explain as just an accident. Right then, Detroit should have decided not to sell Christine and had her crushed. But no. 21 years later, in September 1978, Arnie Cunningham of Rockbridge, California, bought the used, dilapidated 1958 red Fury from George LeBay. George's late brother Roland had owned the car originally. George told Arnie several of the key details about the car, including its name, Christine. But George left out a few key details. Arnie went on and bought Christine with the intention to restore the car, So Arnie took Christine to a do-it-yourself garage and junkyard owned by Will Darnell. Remember, I mentioned that Christine had a vindictive, jealous, evil personality. Well, Arnie's friend Dennis learned from Arnie's mother that Roland died in the car. With this piece of information, Dennis goes over and confronts George LeBay. Remember, that was the person who sold Christine to Arnie. George said, "Roland didn't die by an accident in Christine. Roland stuck a tube from the exhaust into the cabin and committed suicide in Christine." George went on to explain that Roland's daughter had choked to death in the car, and that Roland's ex-wife had committed suicide in it too. George said he forced Roland to get rid of Christine after Roland's wife's death, but the car returned to him after 3 weeks, driverless. Unusual? Not really. A car returning to its owner's home, driverless? During a football game, Dennis, playing in the game, sees Arnie kissing his new girlfriend, Lee Cabot, in front of a now perfect Christine. During the next play, Dennis is tackled, and he breaks his leg in 3 places, ending his career as a football player forever. A few days later, Arnie and Lee were on a date at a drive-in movie theater. It was raining, and one of Christine's windshield wipers stops working. Arnie got out to fix it. Then Lee begins to choke on a hamburger. Arnie is unable to help her because the car doors mysteriously locked. In 1958, power locks were not in cars like they are today. Fortunately, Lee is able to free herself, and a man in the next car over was able to save Lee by using the Heimlich maneuver. After that, Lee tries to convince Arnie that he needs to get rid of Christine. The school's bully, Buddy Repperton, is angry with Arnie over something that Arnie had said to school officials that got Buddy expelled from school. Buddy finds out that Christine is being stored over at Darnell's garage, so Buddy goes to Darnell's garage and vandalizes Christine with the help of his gang. When Arnie sees the damage, he is understandably upset and determined to repair Christine. But Arnie is surprised to see Christine quickly repair herself. Arnie should have been frightened, but he was only amazed seeing Christine rebuild herself right before his eyes. After Christine restored herself, she goes on a revenge rampage. Christine corners one of the vandals and crushes him in an alley. Then Christine triggers a gas station explosion that kills 2 others and destroys Buddy's beautiful Camaro. The gas station fire sets Christine on fire, and saving the meanest for last, she runs down Buddy out on the highway. After a badly burned Christine limped home to Darnell's garage, driverless, Will Darnell made a classic mistake, and he sat behind the wheel, wondering how the car drove in by itself. The mistake turned fatal as Christine crushed Darnell to death between the seat and the steering wheel. In the morning, Christine is back in her slot in Darnell's garage, fully repaired. That's when State Police Detective Rudolph Junkins questions Arnie about the incidents. Luckily, Arnie had an alibi and was nowhere near the scene of any of the murders and could prove it with the receipt for parts that he had in his pocket. Having no direct evidence to implicate Arnie, plus Junkins just cannot believe that Christine can drive herself, he sort of closed his investigation. Because of the mystery of the self-locking car doors and the mysterious deaths of the Vandals and Buddy, Dennis and Lee decide that the only way to save Arnie from Christine and from himself is to destroy Christine. So they set a trap out at Darnell's garage for Christine. Dennis waits at the controls of a bulldozer, while Lee stands ready to close the garage doors and cut off Christine's escape route. Unknown to Lee and Dennis, Christine has been hiding under a pile of debris in the garage. She attacks Lee by plowing through Darnell's office. Arnie, who has been driving Christine, is thrown through the windshield and impaled on a shard of glass, which kills him. Dennis and Lee repeatedly attack Christine with the bulldozer, but she continually repairs herself and strikes back. Until Christine makes an error, the battle continues. Once Dennis catches a break, he repeatedly drives back and forth over top of her, damaging Christine so much that she can no longer immediately regenerate. The following day, Dennis, Lee, and Detective Junkins watch as Christine's remains are crushed by a car crusher in the junkyard and dropped on the ground as a solid block. Is Christine finally dead? She should be. But is she? Or has Christine restored herself and some poor soul gone and bought her? To make the story of Christine even creepier, Stephen King's 1983 novel Christine was inspired by a car that actually existed, the Golden Eagle, a 1964 Dodge 330 limited edition that has been dubbed the most evil car in America. Originally, the Golden Eagle was used as a police car in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. 3 of the officers who drove the car ended up killing their families in murder-suicides. The car was sold to the Allen family, and while no members of that family were ever harmed, several poor souls who vandalized the car in the 80s and the 90s met with tragic fates. One was struck by lightning. Another was decapitated by an 18-wheeler. 2 kids who were hit by other cars died after being flung onto the Golden Eagle. In 2008, one kid simply touched the car. He later went home to murder his entire family and burn his house to the ground. Wendy Allen, who was nicknamed the L-Cat and the Sea Witch of Old Orchard Beach, was the Golden Eagle's longtime owner and continued to drive it despite its apparent kill count. Given Wendy's ominous nickname, a local church group suspected that she had somehow cursed the car. One day, they sought to put an end to the madness by stealing the car, chopping it up into little pieces, and distributing the pieces to various junkyards. Wendy tracked down some of the pieces and had the car remade. Why? Why would you do this knowing the car's history? Wendy claims that other than the doors inexplicably flying open when she's going down the highway, nothing spooky has been attributed to the rebuilt Golden Eagle. At least not yet. The story of the Dodge Golden Eagle is supposed to be true. Do you think it is? Could cars such as Christine and the Dodge really exist? You be the judge. Since I know my channel is Toy Talk, I've just got to talk a little bit about the models of Christine that have been made since the movie came out. Christine was, and still is, an extremely popular diecast model, and countless diecast makers have made models of Christine. Autoworld, Johnny Lightning, Ertles Joyride Studios, Hot Wheels, and Greenlight have all made versions of Christine in diecast in her various states. Some were the rusty, worn-out junk pile that Arnie first bought. Others were of the fully restored and happy Christine. Then there were a few of the angry, blacked-out window Christine. Even one 18th scale version had glowing headlights and blacked-out windows, the way Christine looked just before she went on a killing spree. Autoworld even made a partially restored version along with a charred, burned out version. How cool is that? AMT Model Kits, they even made plastic kits of Christine that you could build any way that you liked. From junk pile, to angry, to burned out, to fully restored happy Christine. Just depends on your fancy. Or you could build several kits and have all states and moods of Christine displayed on your shelves. The big question is, would you want to own a model of Christine? Knowing the history of Christine, would you really want to risk possibly having her evil forces sitting on your shelf? I think I'd chance it. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join my growing YouTube family. I am super appreciative of all of my subscribers. Also, it would be just awesome of you if you would tap that share button and share this video with your friends and your followers. Thanks for watching. I'm Logan, the 64th Gear Jammer Skeele, closing up Advantage Diecast's Southside Warehouse doors on another episode of Toy Talk.